He's Almighty God, the creator of the universe. And we were created for one thing and one thing only. For His purpose, for His will, and for His glory. So we see in verse 1 to 4 of 2 Chronicles that the first thing that they did, the people of Judah, was to go straight to God. The second important thing that they did was this. So the first thing was to go straight to God. The second thing that they did that was very key was to stand firm in their faith in God and not allow fear and doubt to overcome them. And we see this from verse 5 to verse 9. And we read it. Then Jehoshaphat stood up in the assembly of Judah and Jerusalem at the temple of the Lord in front of the new courtyard and said, he said, Lord, the God of our ancestors, are you not the God who is in heaven? Are you not the God who is in heaven? You, that is God, you rule over all the kingdoms of the nations. Power and might are in your hand, and no one can withstand you. Power and might are in your hand, and no one, nothing, no situation, no circumstance, no opposition can withstand you. Our God, you see that? Our God. Did you not drive out the inhabitants of this land before your people Israel, and give it forever to the descendants of Abraham your friend? Verse 8. They have lived in it and have built in it a sanctuary for your name, saying, verse 9, if calamity comes upon us, whether the sword of judgment or plague or famine, we will stand in your presence before this temple that bears your name, and will cry out to you in our distress, and you will hear us and save us. When we read this account, we see that King Jehoshaphat did a couple of things. And the manner in which he responded and the things that he said strengthened his faith and the faith of the people of Judah. And also his response was pleasing to God. But we read this passage now from verse 5 to 9. The first thing that we see that he did that strengthened his faith and the faith of the people of Judah was to acknowledge the absolute power. He acknowledged, he remembered, he acknowledged the absolute power and authority of God over everything. He acknowledged the absolute, not some, complete power of God over everything. Everything in all creation. He acknowledged the absolute power of God over everything, over every situation, over everyone, every single time. Let's read verse 5 to 6 again. He says, Lord, the God of our ancestors, are you not the God who is in heaven? You rule over all the kingdoms of the nations. Power and might are in your hands, and no one can withstand you. So what he is doing there, he is acknowledging the absolute power, remembering the absolute power of God over everything, over every situation, over everyone, every single time. Then what else does he do? To build his faith, to strengthen his faith, to stand firm in his faith. The second thing that the king did was to remember and to recount and to play back the faithfulness of God in the past. So often we forget God's faithfulness in the past, don't we? But we see the king here playing back, remembering and recounting the faithfulness of God in the past. Why? Because he realizes and knows that God is an unchanging God. Our Father, our God, is an unchanging God. And Malachi 3:6 and Hebrews 13:8, they declare the unchanging nature of God. God never changes. In fact, Hebrews 13:8 says what? It declares that Jesus Christ is what? He's the same yesterday, he's the same today, he's the same forever. He's unchanging. Meaning that we can count on his character, we can count on his words, we can count on his promises completely, utterly, fully. This God is unchanging. And that implies that if he's unchanging, and if he was faithful to us, to his children in the past, We can completely rely upon him to be faithful now and to be faithful in the future. But we have to recount, we have to remember, we have to play back the faithfulness of God, the goodness of God, because it reminds us of the character of God, the nature of God. And when we recount the character of God and the faith and the nature of God, what that does is strengthens our faith that God will be faithful now and will be faithful in the future. The third thing that we see that he did was that he demonstrated absolute faith and trust that God alone will save them. No one else was going to save them.